It is March 25th in the year 1994, and the Ordway Theater in St. Paul, Minnesota. Doc Cheatam, it's so good to see and hear you again, and what a pleasure.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy being here in St. Paul, and I hope we'll come back. I hope that I will be able to come back again some days very soon. Nice here.
You know, this is 1994, and looking back in time, when you compare your musical experience and the way that you have developed in big bands and then come around to the small combination, and you've had all this very sterling discipline and academic experience, playing with Cab Calloway, with Fletcher Henderson. What was it like working and traveling overseas with the various units and encountering an international audience for jazz?
I think traveling overseas, one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, because I always played with musicians. I did not know these musicians. They're all strangers to me, and they were very kind to me. They went out of their way to be kind to me, and they know, those musicians over there know everything that I know. They know all the tunes. They study those things. They know. They can tell you what I played 60, 70 years ago. And they studied music and study history of all players. And I think that's a great thing. And they just put me on top every time I go over there and treat me like a king. And I come back to America and I see a different feeling among the cats over here, you know. But it's very educational too, because I hear them. I hear those musicians, how they develop, because when I first went to Europe in the 20s, there were no jazz players in Europe. And they now have developed. They learned a lot from us, from American musicians.
What is it in the music, the literature of American jazz and theater and cabaret music, that is so stimulated the overseas musician?
Well, you mean in the cabarets over here or over there?
You know, the learning process, or what stimulated the learning process in those overseas musicians?
Because everyone was happy. Everyone was happy. Even the doorman, the man that stood out in the street and opened the limousines for people to come in. Everybody was happy. The lights were happy. It's just a happy feeling. The minute you walk into a nightclub in New York, you just felt happy. All of your troubles disappear because everybody's doing wonderful things, dancing, singing, and everybody was happy. There's champagne, and you know, like it was a wonderful feeling to walk into a nightclub in those days in New York.
And the spirit of that music was communicated through recordings and radio broadcasts overseas.
Yes, and the broadcasts from the clubs every night, and the celebrities that would come in. You'd meet great celebrities like Jack Johnson, the prize fighter. He would come in a regular, and you'd bang Bing Crosby, and you just see celebrities come in all the time. They'd go from Cotton Club to Connie's Inn and the Small's Paradise, and that's life. That's everything is lively and happy when you meet people like that.
Here it is, 1994. Is the spirit the same?
No, absolutely not. It's just I don't think it's 1% as well as it was back in those days. No, everything is just dropped. Happiness, people are not happy anymore. There's no fun, no life anymore.
And those were tough days. The Depression was on, the Prohibition was on.
They were tough days, but somehow the people managed to make it. I noticed that. When I came back from Paris in 1930, that was when the stock market. But nobody seemed, I mean, the poor people in America didn't seem to feel it. They didn't have anything anyway before the stock market crashed. So it didn't bother them. It only bothered people with money. So it didn't bother me. I didn't have anything. Nobody had anything up in Harlem. The joints had to close. They couldn't afford to operate the clubs anymore. But everybody sang the blues and went on about their business. A lot of people committed suicide, jumping out of buildings and all like that. Those are the people with money. We didn't have anything in the beginning, so we didn't bother us at all.
So in effect, you knew what it was like and knew how to handle it and make it work.
We certainly did. You know, the funny thing about it, as far as the food is concerned, we had a restaurant. You could go and get a bowl of beans and a piece of cornbread for 25 cents. See, and then the people from downtown used to come up there to get it. People with so-called people with little money used to come up there just to eat those big bowl of bean soup, those navy bean soup. Because, you couldn't get it downtown. Everything was just shot to pieces downtown where the money was.
Under those conditions, how did people like Noble Sissel, U.B. Blake, yourself, and others manage to, place yourselves, create music, and program it and perform it?
They came in the days of composers, composing great songs. That's all they did when they were not working, was compose songs, Noble Sissel and U.B. Blake. And they had something that they didn't have downtown. They had musical comedies, black musical comedies. And they had the greatest of artists, like Josephine Baker and all those great Bill Robinson. Those are people that they didn't have downtown. I had no one like them. So all the artists were uptown. That's why I said every night the limousines would come up in front of the Cotton Club or Connie's Inn. People get out in the full dress and go up there because they knew they were going to be entertained. Cab Calloway, Duke Ellington, and all those people, they made it. They made it in those days. But downtown was just shot to pieces. That's the way it was.
That's a fascinating observation of tough times. Now to the just what stimulated you? Here you come from a family that was mostly in the medical field, and what was it that grabbed you and turned your direction and orientation around and brought you into the musical field?
Well, I saw that my father was a barber, and he would, like in Tennessee, he would earn, say, 25 cents for a haircut, 15 cents for a shave. I don't know how he made it. He had 3 brothers. He put all of these 3 brothers through medical school. He had his sister, Jenny Cheatam, was a great teacher of song and vocal in Tuskegee University. He had me, which I was too young. I was young then. I was in high school. And I saw my father beginning to fail at the very end. He put all of my brother through all of these sons and relatives. How he did it on that kind of money, I do not know. And he had a massive heart attack at the very end. And he couldn't afford to send me to medical school or to college. He couldn't afford it. He tried. He wanted to, but he couldn't. And so he gave me a cornet, a few years before he died. He didn't like my learning to play because I learned very fast. He said, well, you're going to be out there in the street with all those drunken musicians, circus musicians who came to Nashville. He said, you're going to be just like them. And you're going to be drinking corn whiskey and acting a fool like that. I promised him that I wouldn't, and I never fooled with whiskey, wine, anything in my life. I only have one habit. I like when after I eat breakfast, not every morning, most of the morning when I eat and I feel good, there's nothing like a good cigar. And my father smoked cigars. And that's where I found that's the only habit that I have. And he couldn't afford to send me to school. He dropped dead right in our house. And that's why I took the cornet and I studied it and with a lot of help. And at the very end, I was lucky. I met Louis Armstrong. I think God did that. Brought Louis Armstrong to me and saved me because I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know which way I was going before I met him. I was stranded. I was working in the pickle factory. I worked in the cafeteria washing dishes. I worked in the florist shop to earn. But I just stuck it out. I said, where there's a will, there's a way. And I was very lucky from then on. I've been very, very, very lucky. I thank God for that. I certainly do.
Louis Armstrong was a remarkable man, wasn't he?
He certainly was. He was more than that. A lot of people never knew him when he was young, but I did. And I don't think there's another man on the world that ever came up to Louis Armstrong, not only in his playing, but in the way he lived. He was a wonderful man, living, giving, helping people. He helped me, and I was surprised. I didn't think he would do, but he helped me, and he saw that I was doing the right thing because I was young. He didn't want me to get in trouble and anything, and he helped me so much, he and his wife. I'll never forget that. That's why I say I'm the luckiest person in the world. I traveled all over Europe with bands and came back and go back. I go to Europe every year and play with all Sweden and Norway and France, Spain, and Scotland every year. If I get tired, I just won't go. They understand that. But they like me over there, and they treat me so wonderful.
The panorama of your career is just absolutely astounding. And I think, you know, here you are at the Cotton Club and Cab Calloway's band. Louis Armstrong has taken you under his wing and mentored you. And then suddenly we find you in the Afro-American Hispanic bands, Machito, Mario Bauza.
Well, see, I was with Benny Goodman during the days of the big band, went out of business. And I was playing with a band from a Latin band in New York at a place called, I forget the name of that, a ballroom there. And the trumpet player, the main trumpet player is from Panama. And he went he took a job in the theater where they played reviews downtown, which is a lifetime job. So he called me. I just had finished working with Benny Goodman. And he called me and had me to fill in for him for one night. So I did, and the band, the musicians, the Latin band, liked me so much that they wanted to keep me. Well, I stayed because what am I going to do, you know? I stayed with that band 4 years, and I traveled all over South America, all over with this band, which was a sensational band. I worked in Machito. I went to South America with Paris Prado. I meant to try to do well in my life as a musician. I wanted to be a good person, and a good player. That's all I was interested in. I wanted to treat everybody right, and I appreciated people when they treated me right. If they didn't, I forgave them, and that's the way I live.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to meet and talk with you, Doc Cheatam. March 25th, 1994. Sense your spirit and your wisdom, and it's a privilege to talk to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it so very much. I hope to see you again.
Thank you.